Hi, everybody. I'm so excited about tonight. Iris is actually going to do the introduction, but I had a chance to chat with Joyce yesterday, and it was very enlightening. It was fantastic. I can't wait to get her book. Hopefully, she'll talk about her book a little bit tonight as well after her presentation. But you guys are in for a serious treat. And I just want to thank you, Joyce, for joining us before we even get started in case we have chaos and I don't get a chance to at the end. I really, really appreciate you being here with us. And I love that you get a chance to be able to see our amazing people. So we have awesome, awesome people, and I'm super excited and really grateful for all of you guys showing up and respecting Joyce's time. So there you go. Take it away, Iris.
Thank you, Romy. I have a short bio of Joyce, and I just want to talk about 2 or 3 things. She is the owner of Cay Bay Wellness Center. She lives on the Kenai Peninsula. Right, Joyce? Yes. In her hometown of Homer. Homer's at the end of the Kenai Peninsula, about 250 miles from Anchorage. Population is 5,000. Service are about 20,000. So there's a lot of people up there in the service. She married her high school sweetheart 48 years ago.
That's in Alaska, too, in case they don't know where.
Oh, the 20,000 people and the 5,000?
Where you're talking about is in Alaska.
Oh, yes. And she raised 4 children with her husband, 2 girls and 2 boys. She's been married for 48 years. That's a long time for anybody to put up with somebody. And 6 grandchildren that all live close by. And Stephanie Fritz is her upline diamond. Some of you know Stephanie and her enroller. She's been helping people with their health and wellness for over 41 years. And she's excited to see where authoring a book on essential oils will take her and the wonderful people it will bring into her life. Well, last fall at convention, that book brought her into my life. And I took the training class, and it is amazing. I was having to wear sunglasses all the time, and after the genetic emotional mapping, I didn't need my sunglasses anymore. It happened instantly. So you've got a good presentation coming up here. Joyce, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Well, I'm really happy to be here and to share with you guys, particularly with my love and passion for what I do. And wouldn't you know that right when I start talking, the phones start ringing. So please ignore those. My husband will get that and take care of whoever's calling. But I have been in the wellness business, excuse me.
Only in Alaska they still have landlines, right? I love that.
Oh gosh, there's can't change it. We'll just ignore it. It's light enough. No, you have to have a landline here because even in my house sometimes with my cell phone, I have to stand in a certain place in order for you to hear me. If I move away, all the bars go away and I'm gone. So if you really want to have contact, you have to have a landline and you have to have an answering machine. But back to, I have been interested in wellness for, when I was 21 years old, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was told that I would probably be in a wheelchair and the rest of my life, and if I ever had children, that I would not be able to run and play with them. I can remember at that time, because of my religious beliefs, we believe in laying on of hands, and I remember having a blessing by the elders of the church, and I was told by our bishop that if I would do those things that the Lord required of me, I would be fine. And I can remember at 21 years of age going, I have no clue what's fine with God. I could be fine dead. I could be fine alive. I could be fine in a wheelchair. I have no idea what fine means to God. So I'm just going to go about my life trying to be the very best that I can be, being kind and considerate and doing those things, following the 10 Commandments, doing those types of things, and just striving to be a compassionate, caring person. But that diagnosis brought me into a woman's life who had had MS for many years, lived up here out in the boondocks, so to speak. And my family physician, bless his heart, told me at that time that there really wasn't a lot that they knew about MS or really any therapy for that or drugs or whatever. And he said, I think you would be better off to go talk to Dorothy Kavanaugh and find out what she's done for all these years to be able to manage her MS. So it was through her that I first started learning about nutrition, learning about supplements. And so I followed that protocol that she had recommended, staying away from heavy chemicals and those types of things. And my symptoms subsided, but there were still times that if I didn't get enough sleep, if I ate too much gluten, and that was way before gluten was even on the radar at all. But she had found that high gluten things would exacerbate her symptoms. And I found that to be the same thing for me, that I would lose strength in my left side. I would become just totally exhausted. It was all I could do to just get up out of bed and get something to eat and go right back to bed. But over the years, I learned of homeopathy. I did nutrition. I did just about anything that I could find to help myself to abate the symptoms. And as the years have gone forward and I started learning about energy medicine, and Deepak Chopra, of course, says, if you go around saying you're sick and tired all the time, don't be surprised if you're sick and tired. And there's a lot of research now confirming that our thoughts have a great deal to do with how we feel, and that it can self-prophecy and self-manifestation of when we take on things. And I never, and it was interesting, at the same time that I was diagnosed, there were 2 other women in my town that were diagnosed with MS. And I am the only one that's living today. The rest of the other 2 ladies passed away quite some time ago. And they went on the traditional, and at that time, cortisone was really what they gave you, and that really didn't have any effect on it. And they found later that it, really wasn't an effective drug to use. But I chose to go the more holistic way and proved to be successful. And I have since come to believe that because I did not take on the label of MS, I never labeled myself as a person with MS. And my motto was at that time that I am not going to lay down for MS, it's going to have to catch me. And so my whole life has been proactive to fight against that diagnosis that I received as a 21-year-old. And since then, as Iris mentioned, I bore 4 children. However, in that interim, I had at least 9 miscarriages, and that had to do with hormonal imbalances, and I think probably some of the effects of the MS symptoms that I was expressing. But successfully bore 4 children, and they're the delight of my life, and my 6 grandchildren keep us going, in our gray-haired years. But so in the process of doing this, I started learning that there are emotions that are at the root of all illness. And if you have read any of Louise Hay's books, Carol Trueman's books, Carol Tuttle's books, oh, there's just a myriad of them out there. Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief. There's Obesier that wrote Biology of Belief. No, not biology. It's Biogenealogy, Psychic Roots of Illness, that was written, that all talks about these emotions that are like a solvent album that we pass from generation to generation, that left run long enough, it will actually start to influence how our DNA is and how we then process. Like Louise Hay says that, you know, if you've got a pancreas problem, then you can be sure that the underlying issue is there is no sweetness or joy in life. Now, I see that there's 34 participants in this call right now, and we could all suffer from diabetes, and it could be the sweetness of life is not there, but we would all have a different story or how we viewed that there is no sweetness in life. And the thing that I also started learning was that, as Bruce Lipton states in his book, Biology of Belief, that 95% of the time we're working out of the subconscious. And so, and that subconscious had its origin a long time ago, way back there in the generational pool. And I'm gonna try to switch over here to my little screen presentation. So if you'll bear with me for just a second here. So, and this is my first time doing this, and I can see that all my little letters got a little out of skew here. So, but generational emotional reprogramming. So I'm just gonna switch and see. So I just hit, okay. So this is the cover of the book that will be coming out next month that I talk about this. I developed a process called generational emotional mapping. Originally, the book was genetic energy mapping. But once I started about 7 years ago when I got into the doTERRA oils and I started seeing the emotions of the oils and recognizing that, yes, it is genetic energy, but it's also that generational emotion. And the mapping is just trying to figure out the different aspects. And so when we look at life, you know, we deal with different emotions. We can have anger, we have worry, you know, those things that we all deal with. What if I'm doing it wrong? I'm not good enough. He or she won't love me. All of these different emotions that we deal with on a daily basis. Are we confused? What am I to do? Why don't children come with a manual? All of these different things that are on our plate every day. We're stressed. Stress is one of the, as we know, is really at the root of a lot of things. And that's why the essential oils are so effective, because they are geared to releasing that stress. And yes, they do, you know, address like your headaches or your digestion and those kinds of things, but they're very good at releasing the stress. And how it does that is that most of you, if you've been into oils, you know that the aromatherapy has to do with the olfactor and that limbic brain where old emotions are trapped. And so when you're getting that aromatic effect, then what it's doing is it's being able to release those old trapped emotions that are stuck. And a lot of times we don't know what they are, but the oil is going to help deal with that anyway. So this is where emotions are carried in the molecules. If you've ever read the book by Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert, she talks about how the emotion, the molecules carry emotions, and they talk to each other, and they go into the cell, and they impact function of the cell and the behavior of the cell. So we also have the directors of the emotions, which we have. Number one is the brain, that mind, the logic and intellect. And as Bruce Lipton said, 95% of the time we're working out of that subconscious. And so if we aren't in our conscious mind and we come up against something, there is a feeling or an emotion that comes about, and we automatically go inside and start searching that database. Okay, I just felt disrespected. How do I respond to disrespect? Some people respond by firing back. Some will withdraw. Some will get sad. Some will get depressed. So whatever that generational programming is, that's what we hit the play button, and that's how we respond. And most people, if you have, we think back to when we were first in a relationship, perhaps, you know, with our husband. I remember back as a young girl and dating my husband, you know, that we have to make sure that our hair is just right, and we have to make sure that we're dressed just right, and we say the right things, and we do the right things. We're in our conscious mind orchestrating all of that. But the more comfortable we become with somebody, the less we're in the conscious realm, and we'll default to the subconscious. And so that's when all of a sudden we've gotten married and the honeymoon is over, and somebody throws a little fit, and we look at them and go, who in the world was that? I never saw that side of that person. And that has to do because we're not in the conscious mind. So we also have the heart, or the intuition, that, you know, there are neural pathways that run from the heart to the brain, and the heart is very much connected with our emotions. And we also have the gut. So just in that respect, when we're using DigestZen, if you've got a gut issue, you're gonna look at that, and it's going to be dealing with, of course, loss of appetite for life, inability to assimilate new experiences, and feelings of overwhelmed. So those are some emotions that can be running. Those are like the top 3 emotions. There's lots of others, but I found over the years that those are kind of your top ones. But DigestZen, the affirmation of that is, I am able to digest and assimilate all the new experiences. So that helps me to know when someone is testing for DigestZen that they're really got something going on in their life that they're not being able to digest or process as well. So these are the areas of our body that, in these directors of our emotions, communicate with each other. They feed back to, and therefore influence the mind. So from this, that site, What It's Emotions, this group, they have Share Success. This was by Sherry Burton. That so an example of that is, if the mind, if you've got something going on, an experience with job or death or something like that, the mind says, I have to figure it out, but the heart goes, I'm overwhelmed, and the gut goes, I'm stuck. So we can have a reaction of, we get a tension headache, we have a conflict of feelings, and we have an upset stomach. And so then those just go round and round. And just starting to understand that when we are dealing with emotions, that most of these emotions are coming from a generational standpoint. And just like you see this picture of kudzu that in the South grows up and covers the fences and covers everything, we have generational emotions that get passed from generation to generation to generation. And it starts to create physical symptoms. And for everybody, those physical symptoms are going to show up in different ways. For one person, it may be diabetes. For another person, it may be arthritis. For another person, it would be anxiety. but it makes it really difficult. And as we go through life, the main thing that we always try to look at our time track, don't we? We try to think back of what happened in our youth, you know, what boyfriends, what life experiences, I lost my job. We'll look back and we'll try to pin our feeling or our emotion on an event that has happened to us. But you have to remember that about 95% of that has its origin in a generational pattern that happened way before you did. I have worked with people that the emotion started like 75 generations ago, and a generation equals about 75 years. So that's a way back there that this emotion has started. I can't see everybody on here, but how many of you are familiar with homeopathic remedies? And so if you are familiar with homeopathic remedies, you know that a remedy is made by taking 1 part of, say, arsenic and putting it in 90 parts water or alcohol and succussing that. And then you take 1 part of that and put it in 99 parts and you keep diluting it. Each time that it is diluted, by the time it's been done 20 times, there is no physical, chemical attribute of that arsenic in there anymore. It's just the signature. But the interesting thing is the more that you dilute it, the stronger the remedy becomes. And so if we can think of that generational emotion that's been passed through the generations, each time that it is passed on, it becomes stronger. And this is not total science, but my belief is that's part of why we see so much chaos in the body and mind today, because we have had these emotions and these feelings passed down for so many generations without them being addressed. But they can be addressed very quickly. So what I've come up with, you'll see here on the chart that there's generational factors that I thought, okay, how are we looking at this? There's no sweetness in life. Are we looking at it based on an error of thought? Are we looking at it based on negative emotions, negative words, lies, or evil? And evil, you can look at that in any way that you want. Some people that are, you know, those of us who are in the Christian community, we believe in an adversarial energy that's out there. But we can also look at it as just an adversarial energy within the human race that, you know, that evil would be someone did something with the intent to hurt somebody or to harm somebody, produced a lie or that type of thing to hurt somebody. So those are the filters that we look through. And Bruce Lipton, he talks about, you know, when you look at these pictures, what do you see? You know, some people will see the child, other people will see the moon. Some people will see the 2 silhouettes looking at each other, another person will see the vase. So when you can change your perception, you can change your pathology. And so if you look at what Bruce Lipton says, that 95% of the time that we're working out of the subconscious, you have to say, who's driving the car? So what I have done with this gem therapy is it's just a quick tool that you can use to get to the root of the emotion. And what I found over the years is that we generally don't know what it is, but the body does, because we have downloaded in our computer all of that information. So I'm sure that most of you, if not all of you that are on this call, are familiar with muscle testing, are you not? That is the modality that I use for testing to get to that root issue. So the method that I use when I work in the clinic with people is I teach them the heel or toe method. And I'm going to go back here and see if I can see more people. If anybody has a question or wants to make a comment, please interrupt me. Please raise your hand or whatever. Will I see that, Kinsey, or how would we know if somebody wants to say something?
Yeah, you can just type it in the chat as well.
Okay. I think I lost my train of thought here for a minute. Let me gather it together. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to find out what the root issue was. So when I have someone come into my clinic, I'll have them make a list of the emotions that are running in the background, or what they're coming in for. So maybe they may have that they have insomnia and indigestion. Maybe they've got some anger issues. And so I just let them talk, and I write down whatever seems to be important to me that they're talking about. I'll just make a list. And then I number all of those items. And so maybe they have 5 items on there. And so then I will do the testing. My phone was on. It started beeping. I will test for which one is the number one issue. Now I'm going to just assume that, that you guys don't know how to test. So I'm just going to show you the method of testing that I do, and I'm going to stand up here so you're just going to see the side of my, just a little bit here, you'll see my body. And so when I pose a statement, and I always use a statement that the issue, and I just number them so that I don't have to say it, because sometimes people's conscious mind gets in the way of what is on the subconscious. And so if they have 5 things, then I'm going to list them, and then I'm going to just affirm which one of those is the number one issue we need to start with today. So I would make the statement, we need to start with number 1, and I would get a no. Number 2, no. Number 3, I would get a yes. And I'm trying to think of a person that I worked with yesterday, as I was going to use their example. So let me just grab this paper here real quick for a minute. Sorry about this. Okay, so once you find out what the issue is, and I'm going to go back here because I've got an example in my share here. Let me go back here. Okay, so one of the things you can see here, once you found what the statement was, my goal was always to go to the root of the problem. I didn't want to just palpitate a symptom. I wanted to go to the root of the problem. So if I want to go to the root of the problem, I know that it had to start with somebody and there had to be an emotion. And so what I did is I set it up that I would test. This is tribal, coming through the mother, father, or both. Or is it family, mother, father, or both? Or is it individual, male, female, or like myself? So if anybody has questions here, remember, raise your hand and unmute and ask or type in your question there. So I would find out who this was coming through. And let me just fast forward here a little bit here. Okay, so here is an example of once you find the emotion, then I have in the book, I have all of the essential oils and what their affirmation is, the oil's affirmation, and then I have the emotions that oil is dealing with. And so in this case, as an example, myrrh being the oil that was needed for this emotional issue, it addresses, the choices were unhappy, wounded, imbalanced, or dishonored. And in this case, wounded and dishonored came up. So if I was dealing with a headache and myrrh was the oil that my body tested for, and I knew that it was generational coming through my father, this gives me a little bit of an idea of what was going on or what is at the root of my symptom of my headache or the anxiety that I'm experiencing, that there's an emotion of being wounded or dishonored, and somehow that's been triggered. As I've gone through daily life, that has been triggered. And you have to remember that we've got, from that event that's generational, it has smell, touch, sight, sound. All of those senses have been tagged, associated with that. So there could be, and we're not going through that in this example that deep, but you could have heard something that triggered this, that was associated with this. So there are a lot of tags, but we're just keeping it really, trying to keep it simple here. So once you found that the myrrh was the oil that was at the root of this familial pattern, you would take that myrrh, and then I would have you test. I go to your main areas that the body holds trauma. So we've got the throat, which has to do with honoring self and speaking up for oneself. We have the heart, which is connection and love. We've got the liver, which is anger, resentment. The gallbladder is also part of that bitterness of life or hanging on to the old story. You've got the pancreas, which is the sweetness of life. The spleen, which is about how we feel about self, our self-confidence. Your kidneys, which is fear. Adrenals is fear. So I would test where you needed to apply that, because again, you're wanting to rewrite the story that's in the tissue. So I would take that myrrh and I would say I would put it over the heart. And the affirmation for myrrh is, myrrh nurtures all bonds connected to mother. When I'm reconnected to mother energy, it invites feelings of trust and being safe. So that also gives me the understanding that this headache is wounded and dishonored, but it also has a mother energy about it. So you see where you start to pick up some little pieces of what really is at the root of this headache. And as you can see, most of us would first go to either peppermint or past tense. Those would be your first go-tos if you had a headache. And that may or may not work, but if it doesn't, you need to start looking at what is at the root of it and what is the emotion that's running in the background. So this book that I'm putting together helps take you through the steps in learning how to address these emotions with the oils. And so when you apply that oil to the body, because again, there's some research out, some Russian scientists did some research here recently that they talked about how vibrations and words can change the DNA. So every oil has a vibration. It has a signature to it. And so when you identify it, and a lot of making that correction on the subconscious is just bringing it to your conscious mind. You know, if you don't have it in the conscious mind, you can't make a change. But once you bring it to the conscious mind, you can make a change. And so by using the power of the frequencies of the oils and applying them, and then I've written a little script. You can use any script that you want. A script is not, a certain script is not mandatory. I've used Carol Truman's script. I've used this script that I'm about to read to you. But I've also just used my own prayer. So as you apply that oil over the heart, that myrrh, I would make this statement. I would ask that the power of myrrh, which nurtures all bonds connected to mother, reconnecting me with mother energy and inviting feelings of trust and safety, charge this affirmation into the generational energy field from where the incorrect perception started and with whom it started, bringing it forward through all generations of time with its original power and authority, thereby renewing the energy field, set and run. And that will, it's kind of like you have to look, if you're working on that headache, for example, and what you want is you want to have addressed that, the root issues up to 100%. So if I calibrate that, it may have only brought it up to addressing 15% of it. So I would go again and find an oil, test to find an oil to help bring that in balance. And I would continue to do that until I had affirmed I had addressed all issues associated with that headache energy. So when you change your perception, as Bruce Lipton says, you change your perception, you change your pathology. So you have to remember, if that message is running in the background of being wounded and dishonored, if that's running in the background, it's going to be sending a message to your body that to start breaking things down, and you will start to see the physical body change. But when you change that perception, you don't have that program running any longer, and the original intent and program of the physical body will kick in, and that's where you see those healings start to transpire. So anybody have any questions here? Want to throw in any comments? Or
We do have some questions in the chat.
I don't see the chat box on my side. How do I see the chat box? Or could somebody just read them to me, and I'll...
Yep, I'll read them to you. Let's see. Would love to see how you find, how you muscle test. So the heel to toe, I think that seems like an easier way to do it. So that would be, I think, a really good way.
So heel or toe, you can do it. All of you that are watching, if you want to practice this, just stand up and just be kind of relaxed, and you would just make the statement. You can find out, you would just go, my name is Joyce. Now use a name that isn't your name. And generally, you think of a magnetic push or pull. So if I were to say, my name is Romy, you see my body start to go back. I am not doing that purposely, but when I say my name is Romy, you see my body start to move backwards. If I make the statement, my name is Joyce, my body starts to shift forward. And so for some people, though, a back will be a yes and a forward would be a no. So you could also make the statement, heels represents yes for me. See, I go forward because I made the statement, heels represents yes. My body went forward going no. Because if I'd have gone back, it would have been a yes. So sometimes it's figuring out which is yes or no for you. But if you just make the statement, so it's kind of like teaching your body something that it's not used to. So if you just affirm toes is yes, and you'll feel that weight on the toes, or no is heels, you'll feel the weight on the heels. So if I'm looking for particular information, like if I had a headache, I would put out those oils that I thought were for the headache, not taking this process into account. But if you had your peppermint and your past tense, and maybe you had clary sage out because maybe the headache might sometimes be associated with your cycle, and I would just go, peppermint is the oil that I need today, and I get a no. Clary sage would be the oil that I need today. So clary sage would be more an oil that I would use versus clary sage. I don't have a headache right now, but my body is liking clary sage better. So, but that's the method that I use. There's another one that you can use that is this way, and you're just trying to flick something off. And so my name is Joyce. I can't flick that open. My name is Romy, and this fulcrum becomes weak. So a stick where it doesn't let go is a yes, and a Romy where it's a no, this will become weak and you won't be able to hold it. So that's another way that you can test. Do you have another question?
I just want to make a comment quick.
Yes.
So for anybody here that is not familiar with muscle testing, and this is something different, and you're thinking that it's odd, it is odd. But
Yes.
But really, just I thought all of this stuff was really, like, I thought reflexology was just really hokey. So really, just take that time and just, if you're, just search and trust yourself. Don't, trust blindly with any of this stuff, but just know that, you'll find your answer, even if it feels really weird now. So.
Yeah, Corianne makes a statement. Children are good ones to practice on too, because they don't have an agenda. And particularly children will learn the heel or toe method really quickly. They're very sensitive. And I use the statement heel or toe because they can feel the shift being on the heel or the shift to the toe. And it is a thing that you really do need to experiment. Just when you get off of here or sometime, just go and test your oils. This is an oil for me today, with no thought other than that this is an oil I need. Or you could go, this is the oil I need to diffuse in my home today. And I just go, it's in, my oils are all in, rows. And so I'll go, the oil I need is in this row. No, the oil is in this row. No, the oil is in this row. Yes. And so then I go, this oil, this oil, this oil. And the one that I choose, that's the one I diffuse for the day. So it makes it simple. And you have to remember, it's every single thought and substance has an energy frequency. That's science. Every single thought and tissue has a frequency. And all you're doing when you are testing something, you are just seeing if that substance is going to strengthen or weaken your body. And so it is scientific, but it's something that you need to just play with. It's not, some people jump right in and they believe in it. And Romy, I saw your sweet husband going, yeah, me, this is crazy. That's kind of like my husband. He'll say, okay, do you want me to lean forward or do you want me to lean backwards? What do you want me to do here? But I happen to have, all of you, though, will use the iTovi or the Zytocam and not question that. It's the same premise. That's electric. You're hooking up to an electrode that is reading the energy in your body, and it's doing exactly the same thing that you would do mechanically. It's the same principle. So was there another question?
Yes. So do you specify the oil that is needed all through muscle testing? Is that by asking clarifying questions?
The process that I would use if I were working with someone and say headache was the number one issue, that I want to find the oil to address that headache, I would then, now right now this is the manual that I have used for years and years, and it's just in a little binder effect. And so I have the numbers, the pages numbered. And so if I were looking for the headache, I would go, the oil that we need for this headache is on pages 1 to 10. There's 60-some pages of the oils that I have in the book. So I would find the page and I would use it that way. In the book that's coming out, I have a master list that you would test, and there's 6 columns in the master list. And so you would say, the first oil that I need for this headache is in column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So maybe it was in column 4, and there's 20 oils in column 4, then you would test which one of those oils. That's how you determine which of the oils that you're going to use. And so, and the way that you could start practicing it even now without the book is that you would just, you have the headache, you would just go, this is the oil that I need to use first. But we're wanting to find, in this case, we're not wanting to look which oil describes and has headache properties, analgesics or that type of thing to help with that headache. We're looking for the emotion of the oil that is going to help us. So some of you even could use, you know, in the meantime, you could use, you know, this little book right here has all the emotion affirmations, but they're quite long, but that would also help you to understand what was in there. The affirmations that I have for each oil, I went through and I researched what was their aroma effect and all of that. And so I've got it in just a real short, like I have here for coriander, enables me to be loyal to myself, seeing my self-worth and fostering being true to myself. Clove awakens my memory that I am protected, giving me courage to overcome the victim mentality. So they've got just real short. Bergamot, which is uplifting and refreshing, bringing hope and courage to love myself without judgment. So what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to find the emotion that needs to be cleared. And where I started with this, I shared with Romy when I was visiting with her, I had a gal that I taught how to test, and she moved away from the area, and some months later I got a call from her, and she said, I really appreciate that you taught me how to test, because she said I was having a lot of hormonal issues, and I had used Clary Sage, I had used the Whisper, I'd gone to all the oils that they talked about that were for hormonal issues, and none of them worked. And so she just went to her little box of oils and just started that. This is the oil that will address my hormonal problems. No, this one. No, this one. No. The one she tested for was birch. Now, how many of you would go to birch for a hormonal issue? None of you. But if you read the emotion about birch, one of the things is that it's for those that feel unsupported. Unsupported, helps to elevate and open and increase awareness of the need to heal generational patterns, inspiring that there's help with that generational pattern. Well, she had moved back home with her family, whom she always had issues with, and now she's having hormonal problems. When she started using the birch, her hormonal symptoms went away. So her symptom was hormonal, but what was causing it was the lack of support from family, which was a generational issue. So Courtney, I see you laughing. Is something come to your mind or something at home? So is there any other questions?
I think that all the questions, you covered the questions that were asked in there. So if she didn't cover, if you'll re-ask differently, then we'll cover it.
So my goal a long time ago, I have been using electrodermal systems in my practice since '98. And so I have, you know, if you're familiar with a Zytocam or iTovi machine, the program that I have is like that on steroids. I can test for 40,000 different things. I can look at hormones, emotions, just tons and tons of things that I've worked with way before I ever got into the oils. But I always felt like that like the computer system, I wanted people to be able to have in their hands a way to get to the root of the problem. And so this is just a way that you can learn to process real quickly where it started, with whom it started, what the emotion is, and what oil will help to address that. And you can very quickly start to shift that energy of what is at the root of your problems. And so that has been the result of this book that I'm writing, and I wanted to get it published. I can post again for you, maybe Romy on your page or somewhere. I'm doing, in conjunction with convention, I'm teaching a 4-hour class to learn how to do this, and it will include a copy of the book and teach you how to process and how to use this information. So that's going to be on the 5th of September, on that Tuesday before convention. So, and I'm offering 2 different times. Right now, the afternoon one is filling up, but I would do an 8 o'clock morning and a 1 o'clock afternoon session if people were interested in that. And I can, right now, somebody asked, what hotel is it in? And I went, I don't know. It's downtown Salt Lake. You can go to my event thing and it will tell you, but I can repost that so that you know exactly, where that is. I think it's a Comfort Suite or Comfort Inn or Comfort, one of those suite hotels.
A comfortable place.
We can find the link. I think I saw it on your page yesterday.
Yeah.
I saw it someplace.
It's posted on my page, and I was going to go back, and because I have a few people that are associated with doTERRA that have taken the course from me. I have quite a few in my community that have done it, because I have a lot of people that do it, take the class because they've got children. They're not necessarily doing it to, I'm a wellness coach and I have a business and I work with people with this, but I have a lot of mothers that just take the class so that they can use it with their families and their children. And it is real effective, because it will make an energy shift, not only in yourself, but it will make an energy shift in your family. And I've seen that happen with myself and with my children.
Yeah.
And I have done it. This was the class that I took last year, and it is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have one more question that I missed.
Uh-huh.
What would you put over your liver? I've had my gallbladder removed already. Could I put it over where it would be? There's lots of anger from past abuse.
So Jessica, in this case, what I would do is, do I have permission to test for you for a minute? Is she still there? I don't want to test if she doesn't want me to test for her.
I don't see her now.
Okay. So what I would do with that is, she has had her gallbladder removed, but just removing the organ does not remove the emotion. The emotion is still trapped in the body. And as she's saying, she's angry about past abuse. And so the liver creates the anger. That's where the seed of anger. But when we want to hang on to that anger and we don't want to let go of it and we want to bring it out and whip it around again, we store it in the gallbladder. And so if the gallbladder is taken out, then it's still there and it will start to affect another part of your body eventually. Or you see that the symptoms that you had that created the need to remove the gallbladder in the first place, you will still get indigestion, you will still get heartburn, you will still have all of these symptoms that you thought were supposed to have been resolved by removing the gallbladder. But just because you remove organ does not, or the part of the body does not mean that the emotion that created it has been removed. And so what I would do if I was her, I would list those emotions. She lists here, I am angry. So maybe there's even some hate, there's some distrust, there's whatever. And this emotion that she's experiencing, I would hazard, because if I test and I go, this anger that she's experiencing from her personal abuse, how much of that is affecting her health? You know, so in other words, I want to find out how much of it is actually hers and how much of it is generational. So on her time track, more than 10%, I get a no. 4, no. 3. So about 3% of this anger, this frustration, this hurt, this whatever she's feeling, only 3% of it has been created in her lifetime. The rest of it is generational energy that has been passed down. And so I would, anger may feel like to her to be the most important thing, but there may be another emotion or feeling that was originally there. And you would need to deal with that first. And so I would just check, what are my feelings associated with this abuse? And then I would go, and once I identified that, then I would go, the first oil I need to address this issue is, and I would check my oils. And, you know, she could start dealing with that immediately, just by having her oils. And I could go on forever, and I'm looking that we're at our hour's time. So I'm just going to share one little story with you before I close here, because I could talk forever, but
we could listen, so it's okay.
one of the things that started me in this is I was putting this all together years ago. I was sitting in church, and my left arm felt like it was being pulled out of the socket. The pain was excruciating. And I had done nothing to that shoulder, and it hadn't hurt when I came in and sat down in the pew. It just all of a sudden was just painful. I had my mother on my left, my husband on my right, and 2 of our 4 children. So I had done some rapid eye therapy, and they have lists of emotions, male, female. And so in my mind, I'm trying to go through these lists, and I'm sitting in the pew testing, because I can't stand up in church and test. So I'm testing in the pew. This is anger, no. This is resentment, no. This is, I'm going down the line. And I came to the statement, not good enough, and it stuck. And well, prior to that, I had been testing, this is mine, this is my mother's. Well, it came up that it was an issue coming through my father. And so then I started going through the emotions. And when I got to not good enough, it stuck. And as soon as I got the not good enough, in my mind's eye, I could see my father standing with his hands to his side with a big rubber band encasing his arms. Behind him was his mother and father, behind their mother and father, as far as the eye could see. The generations were bound up with this big purple rubber band that had in big black bold letters, not good enough on it. And as I was sitting there, just in my mind, I went, you know, God, I don't know who bought into that. I don't know where that originated or whom that originated with. But we are all your children, and we're all worthy. Please take that back to where it started and bring it through the generations, healing that to me. And as I said that prayer, that rubber band exploded into 1,000,000 pieces, and everybody moved away, and the pain was completely gone in my arm. There was no pain whatsoever. My mother, sitting there, of course, seeing me do this in the pew, leans over and goes, so what was that all about? And I go, it was just Dad. And she sits there for a second, and then she goes, he never comes to me like that. And in my mind, I could hear my father's voice very clearly, because you take the time to listen. So for me, someone else might interpret that differently. For me, it was that those things that had bothered the generations of not being worthy were also affecting me. But I had the ability to bring it to the consciousness, and I had the ability to bless that situation. And just that fast, it was reprogrammed. And that's what I see with the oils. And I could go into much more. It also depends on the personality of the person that was involved in the beginning. Are they a person that has to gather lots of information and know all of the things? If they are, then you're going to be working a little while to resolve the whole problem. If they're a type 3 and they don't care, they just get to work, let's get it done. Oh, it's generational? Good, I'm done with it. I don't care who did it, what happened, whatever, I just want to bless it and be done with it. Then it will move really quickly. So our symptoms that we have are our early warning system. There are physical intelligence telling us something is up that is in disharmony with your divine programming, and that it is in conflict with what your conscious mind and truth is. And so if you can go on the hunt for that, you will start finding that when you've got that sore arm and you put that deep blue on it that's going to help that sore arm, it's going to be much more effective if you also are going and digging a little deeper about what is the emotion that's running that's creating this shoulder to hurt so bad. Because if a program is left running long enough, you will have degeneration of the tissues. And so not only do you need to be looking at the emotional oils, but you also need to be looking at those oils that are designed to help the different frailties that we may have, our headaches or our diabetes or our arthritis or our emotions, those types of things. So it's kind of like you got to work at it from both ends. You get this generational thing healed up, and then you focus on strengthening and building the physical body back up to its optimal state. So thank you so much for inviting me. How could someone set up a private session? You can call me or message me on my phone at 907-299-0348. Or you can text me, or I have an email address also. It is Joyce at K-Bay Wellness Center, all one word, for the email, KBaywellnesscenter.com. So, and I will post, if you want, I'm on Facebook under K-Bay Wellness, and I have my class that I will be teaching in Salt Lake is on there. And if that doesn't work, I'll be at the Truman event. You can come see me there. And thank you so much for letting me talk, and hopefully this made sense to you. It didn't totally confuse everybody, because I forget I've been doing this for over 16 years. And it's just, I breathe it. And so sometimes I don't speak it in the way that it's, I think, oh yeah, everybody understands that, but that's not always true.
I think it's awesome. And I think that the emotions and oils and all of this it's so big that there's no way we're going to grasp all of it in an hour's time. But and some people will gravitate to this and want to learn more, and some people will just file it away.
And I agree, there will be people that will want to learn the process and do the process. But I tell people, if you do nothing else but respect the intelligence of your body, that it knows. Now, all the books that we have are basing it either on what is the chemistry of it and what does it do chemically for the body. How do those chemistries support the different aspects of the body. But only the body knows exactly which one of those energies is going to match up with what you need to solve your problem. And if you do nothing else but test, making that statement, this is the oil I need for this issue, and the body will tell you yes or no. And you can go through your oils, and the oils that your body says, yes, this will address this issue, then those are the oils that I would use. And you will never go wrong with that if you will listen to what the body, and you know, mine is just, my hope is that it will open people's eyes, that they can use the oils in a different way, and that there is a bigger picture to healing than just, oh, this is for the pain, this is for the swelling, this is for the what. I go, why do you have the pain? Why do you have the swelling? What is at the root of that? And if you do that, you're going to be way more successful at healing than if you just are chasing symptoms. So,
I like
thank you
that.
very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was really, really good.
Okay,
So, and I am feeling better today
good.
from my
Good.
session yesterday.
I'm so glad.
It's good. So
Good.
thank you very much. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
And so, Kenzie, if you'll stop the recording, and if you guys will hang tight, we'll do our giveaway.